From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. The legislature is set to resume their 2025 regular session tomorrow, and we'll get to what we can expect this week in a bit. But first, leading the news tonight is an effort to curb violent crime and how its results might have an impact statewide. Local, state, and federal officials today provided an update on the success of Montgomery's Metro Area Crime Suppression Unit, or MACS. The unit, established in 2024, was created in response to rising violent crime and a shortage of law enforcement officers. At a press conference this morning at the Capitol, officials highlighted the unit's achievements in less than 100 days. Take a look. They reported 2,300 traffic stops, 674 arrests, ranging from failure to appear to capital murder, 266 additional arrests, 56 drug seizures, 195 firearms seized, 103 machine gun conversion devices seized, and 51 stolen cars seized. This is exactly why the legislature is considering expanding this program statewide with targeted help for cities.
You can work together as a team. When you train together and want the outcome to be the same, if you don't care who gets the credit, it's amazing what you can do, and that's what we've done here with this group.
We're going to see this world beyond the specific mission of our agencies and our organizations. That while it is not the responsibility of ALEA to provide bodies specifically to the city of Montgomery, they've chosen to do so. While it's clearly not the responsibility of a sheriff to allow deputies to be engaging in stops within the city limits of Montgomery, he has chosen to do so. It's not my responsibility to give investigators to be able to assist in this effort, but we have chosen to do so, and you had a chief that has embraced this help and has worked together with others to provide valuable leadership.
Now is not the time to play games. Our office, our streets are being flooded with dangerous individuals with Glock switches, and it's time for us to hold those, as Steve said before, to hold those defendants accountable for the violence that they're inflicting upon the citizens of Montgomery.
Yet 2024, we had an 18.6% drop in homicides going forward, and that's actually prior to the prior year. We had a 13% drop in basically non-fatal shootings. So far this year, we're looking at about an 18% drop in aggravated assaults. Those results, we still have far to go because any crime, any assault is one too many, but yet those drops didn't happen in a vacuum. They happened because all of us together, as Secretary Taylor said, was working together, not worrying about who got credit.
Investigations have included, but were not limited to, carjackings, commercial robberies, and the manufacture, possession, and use of machine gun conversion devices.
My office is committed to directing all available resources to combat violent crime within the Middle District. This includes prosecuting persons who, in the past, may have just faced a state charge.
The younger generation is what I'm so alarmed about. The number of juveniles that we're catching every single night, every single day that this team is out there, that's alarming. Parents, know what your kids are doing, know what they're bringing home, because we're catching them just like we're catching adults.
The House this week is expected to pick up right where it left off, advancing legislation to combat crime and illegal immigration. A bill overhauling the Department of Veterans Affairs could also be in the House committee this week. Speaker Nathaniel Ledbetter said he likes the House's pace so far, and he looks forward to staying on track.
We'll have probably see some immigration bills next week. We got a couple of bills that probably will come back on the crime package that we passed some of those bills this week, so we'll probably see some of those back on the calendar for next week. I think we had a very productive week this week. If you look at what we were able to accomplish with crime bills and getting those out, those were pretty strong. And then certainly the veterans bill that we got out to help veterans with mental health and transition, I think that's important. So we talked about that before we got started, but that was becoming a public-private partnership where the state's partnering with Alabama Power on the crisis centers for veterans. And Went to a reception last night where they raised some $500,000 for that program. So it was very good. I think it's something, Alabama's one of the top veteran states in the country as far as what we do for veterans. We have over 400,000 veterans in our state, and I think it's important that we help them in transition from military life to civilian life. Sometimes that's not easy. And so I think the Resource Center, Veterans Resource Center, is going to do that, and I'm excited about what's going on with that.
The speaker also said that there will soon be public hearings on efforts to improve government efficiency at the state level. Of course, at the federal level, Elon Musk's Doge operation is taking a broadsword to agencies, making headline after headline for the cuts and firings the entity is planning. While not that aggressive, the Alabama Committee on the Evaluation of Services was established back in 2019 to assess state government and make recommendations on ways to be efficient. The speaker said those hearings will be worth paying attention to.
We'll be working, just FYI, we're going to be working on some issues probably in the next few weeks. We've got a committee in the House called the Financial Responsibility Committee. And we've had a group for about 3 years that has been working on different agencies, making sure the money is spent the way it's supposed to be, making sure the money goes where it's supposed to be. We've been doing the Doge committee before it was popular. And so what I've asked them to do is to come together and get those people that's been working on it and to have some public hearings. And so everybody understands what they've been doing, what they've seen, and transparency that they've gotten. I think that's important, especially in today's world. I think it's something to be positive.
In the Senate, we might know soon the fates of 2 bills aimed at helping independent pharmacies in the state that are struggling to stay afloat financially. Last week, the Senate Banking and Insurance Committee held a public hearing on 2 bills that would tighten regulations on pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. The bills would also place $10 fees on individual prescription purchases to recoup pharmacy costs. Opponents in the healthcare and business community say the bills in their current form would cost consumers more at a time when prescription costs are already up. There's talk of compromise legislation, as the committee could meet again as soon as Wednesday.
Are we anywhere closer to any type of negotiated bill? Are we any closer to where you all can come together to come up with one bill?
I just say that our side has, I know Bobby Giles with the Pharmacy Association in Alabama has met with folks on the other side. We continue to and try to find a middle ground.
And then I hope immediately to get it on the Senate floor. I have 22 co-sponsors in the Senate, so I already have enough co-sponsors to pass the bill, and 8 of the co-sponsors are on this committee, and so I have all confidence that we're going to pass the bill out of committee next week.
When we come back, I'll sit down with State Senator Robert Stewart to talk about some of his legislation, plus the Selma 60 celebration coming up. Stay with us.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Horace King was the most respected bridge builder in the Southeast during the mid-19th century, enslaved until 1846. By 1860, King was one of the wealthiest free blacks in the state. An exceptional engineer and contractor, Alabama hired King to design and build the elegant staircases on the new Capitol building in Montgomery. He later served as a member of the Alabama House of Representatives, earning him a legendary status to this day.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Senator Robert Stewart from Selma. Senator, thanks for coming on the show.
It's always great to be here, Todd.
Well, it's great to have you here, and we're here at the start of another week in the legislative session, the third week, I suppose. You'll be starting the 9th legislative day. That really means when y'all get out on Thursday, we will technically be 10% or a third of the way through the legislative session, 10 out of the third. Of course, that's a little deceiving, isn't it?
Yeah.
But how's it been going so far?
Well, it seems like, this is my third legislative session, and it seems like they just speed up as the years go by. But still, I just wake up every day honored to be able to represent the district that I grew up in and to work with people from all over the state to provide solutions to make our state a better place for Alabamians.
Isn't yours the largest
I have
district?
the largest Senate district.
By landmass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a lot of ground to cover.
Yes, lots of ground. But I've been there.
Well, look, I wanted to ask you about one of your bills. It has to do with worker retirement plans, but not in the public way that we're sort of used to, like state employees and all that kind of stuff. Would actually apply to the private sector in certain ways. Walk me through what your bill does.
Well, it's not lost on me that there's some mass education that has to happen surrounding this topic. And we want to sort of help people conceptualize that retirement is a part and should be a part of workforce development plans, because it's very critical that Alabama workers have strong economic security. That builds morale, it helps with worker retention as well. So with this bill, I'm just so grateful that this bill has had bipartisan support, bipartisan sponsors, and it passed out of committee last week, and it would create a statewide facilitated retirement initiative that targets employees and employers that don't offer retirement plans. And so we're targeting these small businesses, 500 employees or less. It really helps with farmers, independent contractors, with the gig economy. For we know, and 15 other states have already passed similar initiatives, because they understand that if citizens are not able to save for retirement at the front end, that will strain state budgets on the back end when you talk about paying for and appropriating for social services.
Once they retire,
Once they
don't have that extra. They may have Social Security coming in, but that might be it.
Yeah, and so Pew estimates that it would cost states over $334 billion over the next 10 years if individuals aren't able to save, or if they don't have sufficient retirement.
Interesting that you described it as a workforce development issue, because that's kind of been the buzzword around the State House for a couple of years now. Workforce development, increasing our workforce participation rate, right? It's a huge focus of state government. So are you saying that, okay, I'm in that bubble in terms of how much does it cost me to get a job and benefits cliff and all that kind of stuff? Maybe if that company participates in something like this, and in that way is able to offer a retirement benefit, maybe that gets me off the sideline. Maybe that gets me into a job.
And it would boost the burden off of small businesses for being able to facilitate these programs. This legislation makes it incentivize employers to participate, because there are low administrative costs when implementing these plans. And so we help with the state would help market the plan. There is a financial literacy piece to help with the plan's rollout. And so it's a win-win. And it's amazing that we're having this conversation right now, because there are 4 states, including Alabama, and they're red states, and or either states in the Deep South. Mississippi has already passed. On the day that I introduced this legislation, Mississippi had already passed their retirement savings bill. North Carolina has similar legislation this session, as well as Indiana.
Now, according to this plan, would they participate in the RSA?
No, it's not dealing with RSA. So this is a IRA.
Okay.
And so there's no obligation to the state the workers would pay into the program. There's no match. And so it just facilitates, and it will be a public-private partnership where the state, the Secretary of Workforce would, and that organization would have to bid out to an organization that has the expertise, like your Fortune 500, people who deal with
big brokers,
retirements and brokers.
They invest all the time. My brother's a broker, and I still don't understand half the stuff he talks about.
Yes,
but they're experts, and it's important.
And that's why this legislation is so key, because if you don't have, when I think about my district, a lot of people do not have the social capital. They're not talking about retirement at the dinner table. And so this legislation helps workers help themselves. When you come from a background where you're struggling to make ends meet, you're not going to be thinking about strategically planning for the future. You're just going to be thinking about surviving. This legislation will help Alabamians thrive.
Certainly one to watch. I want to ask you about another bill you have. I think you've brought it for the second time now, dealing with post-conviction DNA tests. Talking about those who capital cases, in some cases non-capital cases, but being able to go back and look at DNA evidence. This can be a thorny issue. Can you walk me through what your bill would do, how it would change the state code?
Well, this legislation is targeting non-capital offenses. There are already pathways for capital offenses, but these are for cases that are deemed non-capital offenses. This bill, again, has bipartisan support, bipartisan co-sponsors, and the origins of this bill is my belief, and many other people in the legal profession, that if there is one person in prison that should not be there, that's innocent, then that is one too many. And so there are lots of guidelines in the legislation where people can't abuse doing post-conviction DNA evidence. There are time frames and things of that nature, but the bill also provides support for indigent defense as well.
Okay, so if I can't afford a high-dollar lawyer or something, maybe I can get some help figuring out how to go about requesting a DNA evidence.
Precisely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, it's the second year you've brought it. Do you see good prospects for this bill? What are you hearing in terms of feedback?
Well, I have constituents. A lot of times that drives and pushes legislators to act, is hearing from constituents. And so a constituent of mine brought this to my attention, and we got more co-sponsors this year than last year, so I think that's a good sign as well. And I'm always the optimist. Advocacy is a drum that you have to continue to beat. You might not get it the first year, but if you keep trying, eventually you'll be able to make some inroads.
Absolutely. That's the name of the game in the legislature. Rarely is it 1 year, 2 or 3 or 4. Seen a lot more in some cases. Before I let you go, we've got a big week coming up. It's the 60th anniversary of the bridge crossing in Selma. You obviously represent Selma. I know it's a huge milestone. Tell me about what's going on. What events can we expect? Where does everything start?
So, me and Representative Prince Chestnut, we've been organizing our community around the Selma 60 commemoration since last year. So we did a kickoff of Selma 60 in January, the Thursday before Martin Luther King weekend, and we had a warrant clinic. It was focused on criminal justice, and we wanted to bring court to the community, and we were able to help people clear traffic offenses, failure to appears, and other misdemeanors. And so it was very transformative. We had over 200 people show up to get the help they needed because they said that, hey, this prohibited them from being able to get a job, having their license suspended. And there was a workforce, and there were other societal hurdles that they were facing. And so we were able to really help a lot of people. This past Thursday, we had a mass meeting that was focused on health care. And we had our state health officer was there addressing parishioners at a historic civil rights church. and we had a health fair and health screenings in the fellowship hall, and we had a ceremony doing a candlelight vigil honoring the life of Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was the martyr who led to the Selma, out of Marion, led to the Selma to Montgomery March. And we honored the Good Samaritan hospital nurses, the nurses who treated the bludgeoned protesters there. My grandmother was one of those nurses
Really?
on Bloody Sunday. And so, we're just trying to work to bring our community together. Selma is a community that's very special and unique, and there's a lot of self-determination in our community, and we want to work to espouse those values. So March 6th through 9th is the culminating event where we'll have the reenactment of the march that Sunday, March the 9th. We'll have on that Saturday street vendors. There'll be mock trials, and there's going to be another warrant clinic as well for local people that Friday. And so lots of arts, concerts. There's going to be a free concert that Sunday. CeeLo Green, have you heard of him?
Well, of course.
It's
been a minute.
Yes,
Yeah.
CeeLo Green and Bishop William Murphy. So there's going to be a gospel R&B concert at the Memorial Stadium that Sunday. And so we're just very excited in Selma, Alabama, to welcome people from all over the world with open arms.
I was going to say, the world's eyes will again be on Selma, and it strikes me that, 60 years, so many of those foot soldiers that were there, have passed on, and some of them are passing on. It seems like it's so important to mark these events while there are some still alive and that can participate.
Yes, and it's really important to pay homage and to ensure that people never forget their contributions to make the American dream realized, the dream of democracy and equality for all people. And so we're just so excited to be able to take the world stage and just to be in community nationwide. So we're just so honored, deeply honored. I wake up honored to be the progeny of a lot of those people who paved the way. My grandparents were activists, and they're still alive in East Selma, and they're 85.
Okay.
And they've been more transparent with me about things that have happened. My grandfather actually went to a demonstration at the courthouse where there were students, black and white, that helped him register the vote. And he had never told me that story before.
Was that was all before?
That was before the march in 1965.
We all leading up to that.
Yes.
I mean, listening to those stories, and helping preserve that. I remember I was honored to go in 10 years ago for the 50th. And of course, President Obama came. What I remember about that was it was so important, especially from the congressional angle and everything, was that it be bipartisan. You had Bush, President Bush there as well. You had Jeff Sessions. They made it a point to say, okay, look, we want plenty of Republicans to be there so it can be bipartisan. Is that your hope for this time as well?
Yes, I hope that, this is not Democratic history, it's not Republican history, this is American history.
Absolutely.
And it's the fabric and the tie that binds us all together. Faith in God, faith in country. And I've sent a notice out to all members of the House and Senate, inviting them to come to the Selma 60 commemoration. Wow. And I've gotten some good feedback on both sides of the aisle.
Well, good luck with the event. We'll be there and looking forward to all of that. But I guess before then, you've got a lot to do in the legislature this week.
Lots to do.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and explaining some of this, and we'll look forward to following up.
Great, thanks.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
From 1820 to 1826, Cahaba was the first capital of the state of Alabama. The capital city was located at the convergence of the Alabama and Cahaba rivers because Governor William Wyatt Bibb had arranged for a free gift of land for that purpose from the federal government. An ancient Indian earthwork was found on the site, so the governor reused it as a dramatic centerpiece for the town plan. The sale of lots in Cahaba built the state treasury for the new state and paid for the first state house. Soon the frontier capital had 2 newspapers, numerous businesses, a theater, and nearly 1,000 inhabitants. Despite the loss of the capital to Tuscaloosa in 1826, Cahaba as a county seat grew into one of the wealthiest communities in the nation and did not become a ghost town until well after the Civil War. Cahaba was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1973. Today it is known as the Old Cahaba Archaeological Park.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night at the same time right here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.